Welcome to Badaboom. I'm Chris. On this episode of the podcast, Kyle Starks returns. Creator behind Peacemaker Tries Hard, I Hate This Place, and Where Monsters Lies talks his new mystery series, Pine and Merrimack. Starks talks about the new series, which follows a couple that owns their own detective agency, where they take on cozy divorce cases and insurance scams, but is challenged when a missing girl case comes across their desk. He also dives into his career and even gives some advice to new creators. Listen in and bada boom. Hey Kyle, what's up? Welcome back.
Hey, what's going on, man? Thanks for having me. It's always
Oh,
good to be here in the Badaboom room. That's
really
what you guys
appreciate
call
it.
it.
That's what we're gonna call it now. So thanks for that.
The Bada room.
The
All right.
bada room,
We'll,
exactly.
we'll we'll workshop it.
Listen, also I'll just give you a little piece of the merch eventually when we make those t-shirts,
Sounds good.
Appreciate you. But yeah, you're back, and it's very interesting because now you have a good book coming out. I'm really excited about it. Pine and Merrimack. So tell me about like the inspiration and how you got here.
How I got to Pine and Merrimack, or in
Yeah.
comics? With
Oh,
Pine,
Pine and Merrimack.
I mean, in many ways, Pine and Merrimack is sort of a spiritual follow up to I Hate This Place with Skybound. Um, Basically, I was asked to do something. Is there anything you have that's similar? And I'd actually been sitting on this plot for a while, trying to figure out how to make it work, which is sort of this slow burn. It's now it's a mystery, but now it's a detective book. It's sort of a slow burn detective where it escalates each issue. I want something to seem sort of like innocuous at first that becomes worse and worse and worse as it escalates. I've been seeing that for a while. So when I was asked for something similar to I Hate This Place, um, I love happily married. Like I loved writing Gabby and Trudy so much, and so I was like, oh, I think that's the secret is to do another happily married couple who's not the same, obviously, who is interesting and charming and who you want to be around and who I will do terrible things to. Pine and Merrimack.
Yeah, and in terms of like the inspiration, obviously it's got like a little bit like of a noir feel. Like you have these, obviously they own their private detective firm. They're in a place where the thing they have to worry about is usually infidelity or insurance scams, but something comes across their desk that inspires them to kind of get more involved. So in terms of the details of the story, how did you figure that out, and how are you going to put them through the ringer?
Yeah, it's the classic detective took a case they shouldn't have taken. Um, Boom compared it to. I'm really proud of Boom to do a good marketing job, and they compared it to Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo or to Twin Peaks, and I think those are pretty good. Any noir, I think, is really on Fran Gillan, the artist side. He brings such a great visual aesthetic to it. I think the noir is more him than me.
Mhm.
So shout out to Frank Gillan, which is just some of the most incredible art I've ever seen. Um, yeah, you again, the story characters exist to propel a story, and so in this case, the main character Linnea is an ex-homicide detective. She found that she sort of physically could not stand the idea of murder or to be around murder, and thus she should not be a homicide detective anymore. So she goes back to her hometown to start basically a cozy little detective agency. Infidelity, insurance scams, no missing people, no murders. And her husband is an ex MMA fighter who comes with her, and I love the idea of like uh, a physical protector to sort of your intellectual, and it gives them a freedom to sort of do and say whatever they want without repercussions, which I also like in a character. So that those character aspects, how they exist to propel the story, which I had, but they enhance it because they add all those little details, the little flavorings that's going to make it stronger. I can't say how I'm going to put them through the ringer because you have to buy the issues,
Yeah,
but I will say each issue escalates. At the end, I'm no spoilers. At the end of
yeah.
issue one, they take a missing girl case. They never take missing cases. They took this one for a reason that is personal to Linnea, the main character. The next issue, it's worse, and then the next worse, it gets worse and worse and worse and worse. And it's going to be great. It's going to be great and great for us, awful for them. But I really love people who adore each other being put in danger. Um, I think that's real heroism, and I think it's also like extremely daunting to be involved with as a as a reader, because you're like you don't want anything bad to happen to these people. If it's like, well, that's story, like something bad has
Yeah.
to happen. Um, so yeah, I think I answered that question. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And what's it feel like to kind of be in a position, you talked about sort of Boom asking you like, hey, do you have any more of that Kyle Starks? What's it feel like to be in a position where like, like you're going to publishers and they love your work and you're sort of in a much better place in your career where people are sort
Yeah.
of like you have your audience, you have your style, and you're able to kind of like market that and be in a place where you could tell stories like Pine and Merrimack.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so lucky, and you can't say that enough. Um, each sort of there's sort of tiers to success. I think in any job, it creatively it feels like a little bit more. Um, I can't think of the word. It's like the tiers are much more visible as you move up through them. So your first one is, I hope I'd like to make a comic, so you do it, and you're like, man, I hope someone would let me make a comic. And then you do, and you go, man, I wish what if I could make money doing a comic? And then you do. Um, and so just the idea of someone letting me ever do anything, and I've been very lucky. Image has always been very kind to me. Oni was very kind to me early on. Skybound put out three and a half, 4 books. Skybound was a big supporter of me, and now Dark Horse. I have several projects lined up with them. Um, but to reach a point where people reach out to you, which is what happened with DC and Marvel too. I mean, DC and Marvel reached out to me for both Peacemaker and Marvel Unleashed. Um, it's so surreal because you spend all this time like hustling and sort of trying so hard. Um, but I think there's something about you put out good work, you put out the work you wish was in the world, and I think eventually it finds an audience. Um, and finding an audience is great for comics. Obviously, if you are selling things, then people want you to come sell things for them. But every time a publisher reaches out, I'm honored. It's an unbelievable honor, and it's always thrilling. And for mine, end, I just want to always try to put my best foot forward, which I think this first issue of Pine and Merrimack is such a banger. For Boom, I think I have, and I think hopefully more to come.
Yeah, and in terms of the structure of the story, like, is it going to be 6 issues, or are you kind of looking at this as more like an ongoing story? Because
But
it does seem like the pairing does lead itself to stories that could go on and
yeah,
on, but obviously
yeah.
there's this main story that's going on right now.
Yeah, it's a 5 issue series. Um, yeah, so those are. It's funny that you say it in that way because
Mhm.
there was some of my peers, one of my peers specifically, didn't love the Pine and Merrimack title because it doesn't, which is fair. I like it. I think it rolls off the tongue, and I think it
Yeah,
sounds interesting. And it asks the question like, "What is this?"
yeah,
But you want your titles to either sell the book or ask a question to the reader that makes them want to read it. And I'm not sure Pine and Merrimack does that. It's a hard sell by title. It's a slow burn about people who love each other doing a
mhm,
cozy. It's a tough sell. Um, just like I know I sent. I'm tangenting slightly,
yeah,
but I sent one of my favorite retailers. I was like, "Hey, do you want to read a preview of this new book?" And they're like, "Yeah." And they're like, "That cover's not doing you any favors." And I don't disagree, but you can't spoil anything. And it's about two people who love each other. Like, what is the thrilling cover? You know what I mean?
yeah,
There's no thrilling cover for that. And it's like the title's kind of okay. But in my head, Pine and Merrimack is great for the next arc, which is called, this is not the title, but it's called the Ebony Cave, a Pine and Merrimack mystery.
yeah,
A Pine and Merrimack mystery is great. I love that.
yeah,
And then you put a real title on that. But will there be more? Who knows? Sales
yeah,
decide all that stuff. But certainly, I think as like sort of a um, um, like as characters, I think they present themselves. Lydia and her husband, the
yeah,
ex MMA fighter Parker. I think they present themselves as interesting protagonists for mysteries. Um, and I think when you get to the end of Pine and Merrimack, you will see like there's more options for stories than what first appeared. So, but yeah, I love the idea of there being more and having that blank 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 a Pine and Merrimack mystery. I think it's very catchy. So
yeah. And then eventually, when they go to space, you'll call it a Pine and Merrimack saga.
That's right.
It'll just
A
keep escalating.
Merrimack space opera.
Yeah, exactly. But that's awesome to kind of hear, especially sort of the behind the scenes and sort of like what goes into it. But offline, we were kind of talking about things. I think this is one of those books that do lend itself to people talking about the story when they recommend it. Just
I
because
hope
you
that's
have to
true.
get, you do have to get, the title and obviously the cover. There's so much more going on that it's one of those things where it reminds me of being in the shop and sort of when my shop was open and the
Yeah.
clerk would be like, hey, this is something you gotta, this is what's going on and stuff. So I definitely think it lends itself to that.
Yeah, I'm extremely pleased with this first issue. I think it's
Yeah.
really a banger. A lot happens. It sets up a lot and also sets up nothing
Mm.
because it's a lot of character stuff. I think it's a really good issue. I think just for Fran's art alone, and that's not hyperbole. I think his art is unbelievable, and unique and different, and he brings these characters to life in a way that feels real. Um, but that's the hope. I'm always I don't make things just to make them. I make them to be consumed and entertained and read. They're not for the void. And I think because of that, to me, I'm like, hey, just please read it. Like, I just want you to read it so bad. Like, I didn't do it because it's a character that I liked when I was a kid, and because you know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to always tell entertaining, good, unique, entertaining stories. And the trick is always if I can get people to read the first issue, they'll like it. And that's been my whole career. I think that's true. And it's getting easier now because, whatever Q rating I'm moving up, a few more people know me from Peacemaker and a few more people know me from I Hate This Place. Which is great. That's what we want. We just want to grow an audience all the time because we want more readers. But I do think this is one. It's like, man, if retailers read it, they're going to like it and they're going to tell their customers. And if customers read it, they're going to like it and they're going to tell their friends. And you hope for that for every book, but I especially hope for it for Pine and Merrimack because I think it's a tough sell, man. Like I said, Boom compared it to Vertigo, Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo,
Yeah.
which I don't know if you're familiar with, but that is a slow burn with a lot of character stuff, and then a lot happens at the end. But you enjoy the ride, and I think it's a good one because it's like and I it's not boring. I don't think. But
Mhm.
like it's escalating. You know what I mean? We're going down a path, and so you want people in early to be like, I want to see what happens to these people, and I think it really does that. But someone has to read the issue or tell someone to read the issue, and I hope that's true, man. I hope people do talk about it. I hope it's very popular. I don't know. I don't know how that works. I hope they
Yeah.
read it. I think if they read it, they'll talk about it. But again, the secret is there's so much stuff out. You just got to get people to read it. But I really believe that. I believe that's true of everything I've done. I think if people read Six Sidekicks #1 or Assassination #1, um, if more people read those early ones, it would have sold a lot better than it did.
Yeah, but I think again you're in a space where I think not just publishers are looking for Kyle stars, but fans and readers, and I think it is
Very
coming at
kind.
a good time for you, especially you're sort of 2 months removed from Peacemaker. You have a Wild Dog story coming out, so it's like one
Yeah.
of those
So
things where
good.
I think it's always good to have two things going at the same time,
I agree.
just because that's when it's easy. I can remember when I was in a shop once and you know no one does this in New York anymore. I was at Forbidden Planet, so they don't care. But one of the newer employees came up to me. It's like, hey, like, what are you reading? And I was like, oh, kind of like
Yeah.
reading like Super Sons. It's like, oh, you really like those covers? I was like, yeah. It's like, well, Dustin's working on this thing like Descender. It's really good.
Hmm.
And then I got Descender. I got like
Yeah.
all 12 volumes of Descender right after that. I
Nice.
think
Yeah.
that's like one of those things where again I think it speaks to like what you're doing. You're in a spot where like, hey, if someone just finished Peacemaker tries hard,
There's more.
it
Yeah.
makes it easier for the shop to be like, hey, they just got a new #1 out, like try this out.
Yeah. I think like Peacemaker to Wild Dog is such a good transition for me. Yeah. I mean, definitely like visibility is increasing, and that's like again, that's all you want is just more readers. And I'm certainly going to be able to. I would sell more Pine and Merrimack by whatever name quality I have, which is not much.
Mm.
In 2023, way easier than 2017, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to sell more because I'm my visibility is higher, which is great. I mean, and it's weird because back issue stuff is kind of selling. Rock Candy Mountain is selling really well. We're going to do a reissue of all the books collected, middle of next year. Like that's insane to me. Like that's so crazy. But that's also every book I've done. I've been like, man, I hope someone goes and reads Sex Castle after this. I hope someone reads Rock Candy Mountain after this. I hope someone reads Old Head after this. It's like it's really all you want is to be like, I hope they look at my other stuff, right? And my next thing. And so it is crazy. It's totally insane. And I'm so grateful and thankful that it's happening. I hope it happens more.
Yeah. And what's it feel like sort of being on the other side of Peacemaker? Because, last time we talked, it was kind of the beginning of that run. So what's it feel like sort of the response now that you've been able to tell the whole story and been interacting with fans? I can remember seeing you at New York Comic Con. I bought like one of your last variants of a specific cover. There was a fan there that was literally ready to cry about a specific moment in the book. I won't spoil it. So what's it been like sort of like, that experience, and now do you feel like you're in a different level after that experience?
Um, I mean, probably doing Peacemaker. It's tough because Peacemaker came right after I Hate This Place, and I Hate This
Yeah.
Place sold really well. Um, I Hate This Place sold really well. I don't know the numbers for Peacemaker, and I also don't know what's good DC numbers. So if they told me, I don't know. I would have tried to understand it. Um, but it's certainly being on a big two book that people paid attention to. I think Black Label helps with that too. I think people like Black Label books. Um, I don't know, man. It's cool. It's cool to have reactions, like sort of more reactions, because, like I said, I'm making these things to entertain or to laugh or to feel something or to put people through a journey as much as I'm putting the characters through. So there's more reactions, and they're great. And I'm clearly not like super popular yet because I don't have a lot of hate for whatever I did to whatever character. So uh, we look forward, I guess, to just social media being untenable at some point. But it's great. Anything that brings in more readers, which again hopefully means more readers for my back catalog and for my next thing, um, is unbelievable. It's super great. So we're always moving onward and upward. I think 2023 was my best year of work, um, which was the end of I Hate This Place, Where Monsters Lie, Peacemaker. I really love this Wild Dog series. I think Fernando Pasarin, who's drawing it, is doing unbelievable work. I've just been I feel like I'm forgetting something. Marvel Unleashed. I think Marvel Unleashed was really, really good. I think I made really, really good books this year, and I'm hoping to make really, really good books next year. Hopefully they're better. Each year is better. That's what we're shooting for. So any recognition and any response to that is awesome.
Yeah. And Wild Dog right now is a story in Brave and the Bold. Have you talked to DC about spinning that off into like a regular series? Because we've seen that happen with a couple of the stories in that anthology.
I didn't know that was a thing. I'm
Yeah.
gonna tell you my sort of policy with the big two stuff is I just feel like I don't there's multiple levels to this.
Mhm.
I don't think I don't think I'm in a position to make demands. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? That's number one. I've only done. I mean, DC's reaching out to me, and that's really DC's reached out to me since Peacemaker. Obviously, with Wild Dog, I did a Harley Quinn one shot. I did a Batman Beast War thing, um, and they keep offering me and letting me kind of do what I want to do, which is great. But I also very much am not the type of person, because I don't feel like I can go, hey, what if I did name a character? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't Colossus, or can I do a Colossus series? Can I do a Sleepwalker series or whatever? I don't think I'm in a position to do that. Two, I'm not the type of person who thinks of ideas that won't potentially come to fruition. So for me to be like, hey, I have a great ghostwriter story, I that's probably something people do.
Yeah.
Um, that's probably something people do, and probably at some point someone will be like, hey, do you have any stories? The idea of because I take the structuring and putting together a story and living with these characters and having things happen to the characters that matter, and it's such an emotional investment for me. I don't love doing it if it's not going to become real. And for big two stuff, if I do that and then they say, well, I'm just going to say Ghostwriter repeatedly. That's
Yeah.
not a thing. It's not a thing. But I go, oh man, I this weekend I came up with a really great Ghostwriter story for fun. I really like it. If they say no, it's just gone.
Yeah.
Because it's not like, I mean, you can sort of file the serial numbers off, but it's still clear what it is in a way that makes it lesser. Even if you're doing tropey stuff, I mean, there's ways to get around that for sure. But so I don't think about it. So my policy is sort of like an open door policy. Whereas if they ask me and I can figure out a good story, I'll do it. Which just happened. There's going to be hopefully a big announcement 2024.
Mm.
But I don't and someone who is more successful in that realm of comics
Mhm.
will be like, no, just go tell them or whatever it is,
Yeah.
right? But I feel very much like I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much for asking me. Let me see if I can make it work. And sometimes it won't. Sometimes I'll be like, I can't. I don't know that. I can't figure this character out. I can't figure. I'm just not going to do it. And I think I'm. That's another layer is that I'm lucky enough that I can turn down work like that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I can't go. I just got to figure it out. I want it to be. There's so many things that I want from these stories. Like I can't fall in love with them before. And if I can't make something that is true to a fan of that character in the same regard, like I want a Kyle Stark story
Mm.
that I like very much, but I don't want to make something that you as a fan of Ghost Rider don't go, that was a good Ghost Rider story, right?
Mm.
Not just like what a cool story that Ghost Rider, like not my favorite. I want you to be like that was a dope Ghost Rider story. So there's a lot of different angles I'm living in, but I didn't know anything about the spinoff.
Uh,
um, I don't know how what kind of legs Wild Dog has in the direct market, but would work with Fernando again. Would do Wild Dog again. He's him and Peacemaker are so similar to me that they're underdog dummies trying their hardest, and I love that. Like I just love that. I love how they're unique and like they have personality. And now I kind of applied a personality to Wild Dog that didn't
yeah.
exist before, but I like the idea that they're unique in how they think and operate, almost entirely. And so I like both of those. Would do again, but only if I could come up with a good story. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't just say like today they have not asked me.
Mm.
Don't get mad, DC. They
Mm.
have not asked me about doing more Peacemaker. I don't know if they're waiting for trade sales. I don't know if it didn't sell it well. I don't know if it's Black Label and they just like to do one thing. I don't
Yeah.
know. But if they asked me today, I couldn't say, yeah, I got a story because, as I said, I'm not even thinking about it. Because why would I think about it before the opportunity came along? I have 5 other books I'm writing right now. But I would think real hard about Peacemaker. I think real hard about Wild Dog. They're 2 characters I really like, who I think I can write really well. Um, and there's stories to be pulled from them. And some characters for me, it's harder. Like if you were like do green like a space thing, like I don't think I could do that. I just don't like big sci-fi stuff or big fancy stuff. I don't get it. It's too. I'm not smart enough. You know, I'm just not smart enough to do that stuff. I just want guys like who have problems who also
Yeah.
fight crime.
Yeah, so hopefully that means, in 2024 we get the announcement that there's a Vigilante series by Kyle Starks coming out. So
Man, I would have loved to have done Vigilante.
yeah,
I love
because
that character.
listen, I part of I think sort of some of the stuff we were talking about, it's like, hey, Vigilante was a breakout character. I can't find Vigilante in the DC
No,
comic books.
that character doesn't exist, and
Yeah.
neither did that Peacemaker.
Mm.
And I think that's really important. And I like honestly, it was said when I was asked was like, what do you think it should be? Like that was like not it, maybe it's how they phrase it,
Yeah.
and I misread it, but I'm like, there's only one thing it can be. It should be as close to that show as legally possible, and it is, which is why there's no vigilante and there's no Eagly. Um, but it's like that's what it is, and the idea that it would be anything else is crazy. That vigilante, I might have liked vigilante more than Peacemaker, so it was kind of a bummer that I couldn't also write. There's a fly in there. I couldn't also write vigilante too, because I think, and there's also something about that friendship and how they sort of anyway. Yeah, I'm down. Call me DC. I'll do vigilante. Uh,
Yeah, I
it'll be great.
no, love that character, and like you, that was probably my favorite character, which is upsetting because there's not enough merch for Vigilante. As we said, you
Yep.
can't own a piece of Vigilante. But like I think sort of what's been great about these two conversations, you're very like much about like your lane, you're very much like sort of into what you do, but what I loved is like recently you tweeted out about sort of your journey and sort of being out,
Oh
like,
yeah.
no, not a bad thing, not a bad thing,
No,
when you
I'm
say
old.
like, all right, like let me just bring out like these receipts and stuff
Yeah, yeah,
about
yeah.
your journey as a creator, how you started sort of a little bit later than most, and sort of the spot you're at. So is there any like advice you would give up and coming creators? Because I think we are in a spot where, whereas maybe before people were like, I need to get a job at Marvel, I need to get a job at DC, more and more people are realizing like, hey, like if I want to make a comic book, I just need to make a
There's
comic
other
book.
venues now. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's other venues, which is, and even I mean, for me, I'm 47. I'm old, but if 20 is probably not right. Let's say 30. That's not right either. 25 years ago, you couldn't have a career unless you lived in certain places, more or less.
Yeah.
Um, And that's not true at all anymore. So even just making comics, like you can be anywhere, that was revelatory. I think for anyone to sort of enter in to the industry. So like when I started, I mean, which was 15 years ago, 13 years ago is when I made my first comic basically. So when I was 30, do math, Kyle, 30, I'm 47 this year, 34 years ago, or I'm 34. I was basically 34 when I made my first comic. And the thing was, I was about to have my second kid. I liked comics when I was little. I went to art school, you know what I mean? But I went to art school to be a painter. And I was like, that's not going to work. I never finished a comic. So before I had my second kid, I was like, I'm just going to finish a comic. I'm just going to finish one. 17 pages. Who cares? Just it's beginning, middle, and end. It's done. I did a whole story. And I ended up doing a book called Ricky Thunder, which is like 180 pages, which is dumb and not the way to do it. It's completely wrong. But I fell in love with the medium. And so I had a real job. I worked at a union factory, you know, and I was making comics because I found a hobby. I found something that I loved doing. And that's a lot of comics for sure. Like I think you do have to love it because there's a lot more problems in all angles of it. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I think if I was going to give advice, there's some that I kind of give over and over. So one is make the thing you want to exist in the world. Make the thing you want to exist in the world, and when it's done, you'll go, that was good. This feeds what I want in a story and what I want in a story. And so even Ricky Thunder, which I drew rushed sometimes, I read it and I go, I like that story. And that's true pretty much everything, minus some editorial influence once you sort of get into the industry that maybe things didn't go exactly the way I wanted to, but I still like them a lot because it told what I came in wanting to tell a specific story. So I think number one is make the thing that you wish existed in the world. That way you will always be happy with it. And if you like it, other people will like it because you're doing the thing you like to do. That tweet in particular was about how there is no end age. Like I made my first comic when I was 35, 30, whatever I said, 36, whatever. 3 years, 30, 46, 33. I don't remember.
There's a reason you're a comic creator and not an
yeah, I'm bad at this math. But, I mean, I was in my mid 30s basically, and I'm now going to be 47 in February, and only just now do people maybe care. And I've been very lucky because I've made money. I went pro, which means I quit that job. After that job, I had to go pro because they closed that factory when I was 40. When I was 40 years old, literally January 1st, 40 years old, I went full-time comics, and I've been very lucky, super lucky over and over and over again. Like we discussed earlier, people are reading the books, people are talking about the books, and I keep getting bigger opportunities. But Rock Candy Mountain sold what it sold. I hate this place. So many years later, sold really well. Like it's a slow path, but every book I've made is something that I'm proud of and something that I have no regrets having made. It's exactly what I wanted to exist at the time, and really my whole life. Like I look back on all those, it's like these are the things I like, and I take into account and entertain people. So there's no age. Make the thing you want to exist. Don't be so hard on yourself. The most important things I learned in college, going to art school, were everything has to end. Like you can't work on it forever, and finding that spot's important. And so because of that, it'll never be perfect. But you want to be as close as perfect as you can within a time frame. And I think that's a really important lesson for anyone, because getting it done is the most important thing. Once it's done, you did it. You're a comic creator, right? Or you're whatever. You're a musician, and you can look at that thing and go, objectively, I need to do this better next time. And you just do that thing better next time, and that's how we improve, and that's what we endeavor for. But mostly, the most important thing is you have to do it. If you want to be something, you have to do it. And I also think I can do this at length because I think I have a lot of lessons for my life. Like I consumed I worked at a comic shop that also had used books and used records. It was a video rental store and had pornography. And so I consumed endless story because I love it. I love movies. I love books. I love comics, even music. Like my favorite music is kind of story songs too. And you like if you want to be a really good guitar player, you have to play a lot of guitar, but you should also be listening to a lot of guitar too. Good guitar, bad guitar, because the bad stuff you go, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Or you go, this isn't good because of this, and you learn how to roll that into yourself. So that's my advice: do the thing, consume the thing, rinse, repeat, make the thing you love, and then other people will love it too.
Yeah. And
was that good?
That was perfect. We're gonna turn that into a little reel, and then also,
Yeah, all right.
that's how you'll sell the book and stuff. But you have a big 2024. So like, what can you talk about outside of Pine and Merrimack that's coming up for you?
Here's what I can talk about that's been announced. Pine and Merrimack comes out at the beginning of January. It's 5 issues from Boom. I think it's really good. If anything, Fran Galan is so good. Like, he's literally so good. He's gonna be stolen away from me. I know. We're getting this one book, and he's gonna go work for someone who can pay him better than me. In the middle of the year, which isn't fun to say, but in the middle of the year, we're doing the Rock Candy Mountain Omnibus, which is going to collect the 2 volumes in one, which is how she's always been. We're going to put all the back matter from the single issues in there, so a bunch of really cool hobo essays and probably some art stuff. It's just going to be the collected edition. I'm really excited about that. I have a book from First Second coming out called Karate Prom, which is exactly what it sounds like. It is a high school kung fu romance with silly characters and silly situations. It's
I'd
very,
be
very,
very
very much.
disappointed if there was no Karate Prom in a book that was called Karate.
There's 100% a karate, and there's prom. And I think it's if you have been a fan of mine, if you like Sex Castle, if you like Rock Candy Mountain, if you like Kill Them All, like, this is very much, you're gonna like it a lot, which is just what I think comics should be. I think they should be fun, and I think they should make you feel something, and I think it should be likable characters, and it's full of that. I'm very proud of that. In 2024, there will be, I assume, a DC announcement I'm very excited about. It's another character that when they asked me, I was like, oh yeah, it's perfect. Why would I not do this? And what else do I have that's not been announced? I have 2 books minimum. I have more than that from Dark Horse coming out next year. I have 3 books. I have 3 books for Dark Horse I'm writing right now. And one is a familiar title. Yeah. I've only done 1 book with Dark Horse. That's easy math. Yeah. And the other 2 are very exciting. I feel like I'm forgetting something else I'm doing. No, I think that's it. I'm so busy, man, and I can only assume I'm optimistic that probably more Big 2 stuff, hopefully, because I think it's fun when they let it be fun for me. And the other stuff, it's going to be. I'm just trying, but the thing is, like, you got, at some point, I have to say no to more work, and you have to, I really want to focus on this one thing. I'd love to draw a comic again next year. I would love to do another book where I drew and wrote it because it makes me so happy. So I'd like to make space for that, but when does that come out next year? Probably not, or at the end of next year, maybe. But also, like, this Big 2 stuff, they turn around fast. Like, they don't mess around. You're talking, it's at the door. So we'll see. I'm hoping to do more. I have good stuff coming out. Hopefully it's as good as 2023, because I think I did, like I said, really good work this year. And I think Pine and Merrimack's that number 1's so good, man. I'm so pleased with that number 1. And I think it's a good foot forward going into the new year.
Yeah, I'm excited for the whole series, because then I could talk to you about number 1. Obviously, yeah. We don't want to spoil things, but I love that first issue. I'm excited for people to get a hold of it. I'm excited to get a physical copy, and then hopefully see you and get it signed as you're holding your first omnibus, which is great. And congrats, and really appreciate you coming on. It's one of the more fun conversations, especially before we get on. So thank you, Kyle.
Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate that.
No, and thank you. And with that, Badaboom.
Badaboom.
Thank you for listening to the Badaboom podcast. Keep the conversation going with Chris and I on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. You can find us on all these places at Badaboom Podcast. Get into the comments on our YouTube channel. Let us know what you like about the show or what you'd like to hear from us in the future. Until next time, please subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Thanks for listening.